Welcome into the OBR streaming network. This is Things I Think I Know About the Cleveland Browns. My name is Brad Ward. I am your host, your solo host today, as we wrap up mandatory minicamp and look towards training camp, which is 6 weeks away. Players, coaches, vacating the building for what is basically summer break for NFL teams. The NFL has lined this thing up now where it's just one event after another across the calendar, to the point that we are now where we get through rookie mini camp into OTAs into mandatory mini camp, and then finally this break, which 6 weeks or so until the players are back. They'll be back in late July. I think it's like the 21st for the Browns. I think. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, and that's where we are. So we're going to talk a little bit about some things to take away from, um, from the entire mini camp, the OTA session, the roster as a whole today, just for a little bit. Some talking points as we go into this summer break period, which certainly will still be full of content here at the OBR. We'll have our shows every night of the week, 5 nights of the week here at theobr.com. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, or the notification bell, pardon me. So, every time we go live, as we push for 10,000 subscribers here at the channel, a big deal for us. And we appreciate your support in doing so. It only takes a second, and it's free. Second of your time. So do all the things, as Casey Kinnaman would say. All right. I wanted to start off here, obviously, with quarterback. And there's two things that I wanted to talk about. I thought one of the most telling interviews that we heard was from Kevin Stefanski, was in regards to, like, and he keeps saying, with as far as the reps goes, and somebody on my show, on the show last night on All Eyes on Cleveland in the chat, made a good point, pointing out, like, yeah, the reps don't mean as much as a lot of people are making them out to mean, and certainly taking statistics like they've done over at ESPN Cleveland is a bit much, right? Um, there's a lot of context to these reps, right? There's a lot of context that we don't know to these reps, and that, to me, that was more laid out by, like, Stefanski, talking about this is an installation period, this is a teaching period. Don't worry about who's out on the field or who's this, who's that. He said we're going to give the reps to who we think needs them, who is, and when they need them, and don't pay attention to all that stuff. But these 3 days, OTAs as a whole, is about installing the offense, teaching the offense, making sure everybody understands all that, and none better laid out that than his speech in front of the team, where he basically says, we have all these games, we have all these preseason games, we have our aspirations in the playoffs. We're preparing for that. This time is time to learn how to practice, learn all this stuff, so that when we come back from this break, we hit the ground running, go from the moon, go. And that's the complete opposite of last year, right? First and foremost, last year they went into training camp with 2 tackles still injured from the year before. Quarterback Deshaun Watson only throwing certain days, pitch counts, throwing with a towel, all the things that, it appeared last year, they very kind of like an old man easing into a bath aggressiveness style, is they eased into training camp, and what turned out to not be the very good recipe for starting off your season well. whether that ended up mattering or not, because you just didn't get the quarterback play that you wanted or needed, but it just was a recipe for disaster. And they are approaching this clearly in a different manner this year. And I thought the speech was great. And I think his point that, you know, um, the installation of the offense in the teaching period is now, is or was this past week and all through OTAs. So with your quarterbacks and the reps and who's doing what, there's a reason. Pete Smith called it from the beginning. Don't expect Flacco to see a ton of reps at the beginning of this. He doesn't need them. The other guys need them, right? To learn the offense, to become acquainted with uh, the playbook and calling the plays and knowing where to go with the football and reads and all of that context, though, like where they want the quarterback's eyes to be, where they want his drop to be, where they want the ball to come out, how fast they want it to come out, and to who and who's open and all of that. That is more of like, this rebuttal that, well, the Browns chart their throws. Well, yeah, but they understand the context of the throws, right? And the context of the play that was called and what they want to see from the quarterback on any given repetition. We don't know all that, right? We don't know what they're looking for on each rep. So taking the statistics and stuff, but just it is what it is. We beat that, into the ground. It's not as useful as many would want you to believe. But of course they mean something. I am still of the belief, there's this thought out there that, Shedeur Sanders has not received a first team rep. In front of the media, I'll say he hasn't. I think that there's 5 other practices during OTAs that the media wasn't there, and I would have to guess that he has done exactly that. You're telling me he hasn't thrown one route, Jerry Jeudy, in 7-on-7s or 11-on-11 team periods with the ones in the 5 days that the cameras weren't there? That would be a little bit surprising. I get the overarching view of like, hey, let's not, the people are already in a frenzy about Sanders, right? Let's not send them into an even further frenzy, right? There will be plenty of time for that. The most important critical time for this competition is going to be joint practices, the preseason, in camp. And that's where this job is going to be won or lost. And there's 2 things I wanted to start with today. There's a clip. Jason Lloyd, courtesy of 92.3 The Fan, talking about this quarterback battle, and Jason's been at camp. But it's an interesting because it talks about like, and Anthony Lima makes a good point in this clip. He was on the morning show there with Ken and Anthony, and the way that he talks about this quarterback battle and the way that they talk about it is kind of funny in a way, but at the same time I think that it's interesting, and I want to kind of look at this and talk about it real quickly. So here, this is courtesy of 92.3 The Fan. Jason Lloyd interviewing with the one and only Ken Carman, friend of the show, and of course Anthony Lima.
It's going to start the first game. I'll be shocked if he doesn't. And I say that as someone who's watched every single throw, not all of them.
I'll stop right there. Kenny Pickett's going to start the first game. He's not the only person that believes this, right? I don't see it. Like, maybe he balls out in the preseason, but we've seen that before. We saw that in Pittsburgh. It didn't mean anything. I don't think, by the people that I've talked to, and the very small glimpse, and admittedly, once again, into what we have seen, he hasn't looked spectacular, and we know he's not spectacular. You know, he's your reclamation project. He's your, we hope he turns the corner and Sam Darnold's it, right? Former first round pick, whether that should have been the case or not, that's where he was taken. They liked him in the process. They bring him in. I don't have this belief that like he is the starter. I feel like the default starter is Joe Flacco. Anyways, let's continue with this.
But most of these throws, and I mean, Flacco to me looks like the best quarterback out there, but I think Kenny Pickett's going to be the starter.
You say that very confidently, Jason. Why?
I just how I see it. That's just what I think.
But hold on, Jason. Think of how confusing what you just said was. You just said, I think Flacco's the best quarterback, but Pickett's going to start, but the fans want to see Shedeur.
Yeah, but I mean, listen.
All right. Anthony makes a great point. It is confusing, right? Fans want to see Shedeur, and by all accounts, he has had as good of an OTAs and minicamp as you can have, right? As a rookie. So kudos to him. He said all the right things. His attitude has been on point. He's been pitch perfect. He's been great. By all accounts, he looks great. On all the days the media has been there, his balls have been accurate. That was never, a question with him. Like he incredibly puts the ball wherever he wants to put it. But he's looked good and confident, and he stays late and he's there early. Same for Gabriel, but still, Gabriel less impressive to me in throwing the football. As we've heard Zach Jackson say, as we've heard our own Fred Greetham say, as we've heard now, Jason Lloyd saying, but why are you starting? Like, he's going to go on. I'll let him go on and explain this.
They took the other one, Dylan Gabriel, ahead of Shedeur. That's the most confusing quarterback situation ever.
And but this is just, I think there's other people who agree with me, but this, we're not NFL talent evaluators. But we see just a small snippet of what's going on. That's why so much of what we're talking about here just gets over. But I get it. This is the game, and we got to do it. I get it. But this gets so blown out of proportion when you're talking about rookie mini camps and OTAs and mandatory mini camps, because we're just seeing such a small sliver of what it is that they're doing and what they're looking for. What we see and what they're looking for don't always align. For a lot of reasons, I just think Kenny's going to be the day one starter. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he just completely collapses in training camp. And I mean, first time Joe Flacco dropped back and threw it, I said, yep, he's still got it. The old man can still spin it. And he's looked to me like he's got the best arm. He's the best quarterback on this roster. But I've been pretty consistent on this. I don't know what playing a 40-year-old quarterback, where that gets you with what they're trying to get out of this year.
So he makes some good points, right? And I agree, like, to the point of him, once again, kind of referencing the context. Like, we don't know what they're looking for. It's kind of my point with we don't understand the context around these reps, and what exactly the coaches are looking for on each and every play call and this and that. So it's hard with the glimpse that we have of what they've done so far to really draw a ton of determinations. But one thing I will say and agree with him on is that Flacco to me feels like right now, a shoe-in to, he would give you the best chance to win today, right? I don't think you can just start Kenny Pickett. He's not making $200 million. There's no reason to start Kenny Pickett over Flacco if you think Flacco's better. There are still veterans on this team, Myles Garrett, Delpit, Ward. There are still the entire offensive line, much of the defense. There are still guys on this team that want to go compete, prove everybody wrong, and win. And if Flacco gives you the best chance to do that, and as he just pointed out, he still got it, he probably gives you the best chance to win. In 23, he had no running game when he took us on the Magic ride. I think they're going to have a running game this year. If they do, and you can limit him from having to throw the ball 40 times a game, you probably get a more efficient Flacco. Still explosive down the field when he needs to be. Still throwing the best ball, has the best arm strength, has the most experience. I think he ends up starting the season probably. Now, how long can he last? That's kind of like how I'm looking at this. If you're Shedeur Sanders, you want to position yourself as second, right? Like you want to be the guy that when Flacco runs into whatever it may be, an issue, or week 6 comes around, and or whenever it may be, because he's probably unlikely to play a 17-game season, right? But I think he certainly gives you, if it were today, he gives you the best chance to win your early schedule games. And I think that's how you have to approach it. We know Stefanski is a 1 week at a time guy. We're worried about, once we start to get in close to week 1, it's going to be the same thing. We're worried about week 1 and week 1 only. We're worrying about winning this Sunday. That's going to be the narrative. That's going to be what he pounds into everybody's head. And with that thought in mind, and no Deshaun Watson that you have to play because of whatever, but, playing Deshaun Watson over whoever else, a Jameis last year is is apples to oranges to freaking Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco, right? If Flacco is clearly the best player and he gives you the best chance to win, you should just start. You owe that to this locker room, and in not doing so, you will lose the locker room. You have to play the guy that gives you the best chance to win right away, in my opinion. Flacco, there's no ulterior motive there with Kenny Pickett that would force you to want to start him. Age is the thing that he's alluding to in this clip. But no, you've got to try to win first and foremost. Regardless of what the expectations are from the national media and everybody else, you've got to try to win. And Stefanski has to remind everybody that he's a really good football coach this year. And if Flacco gives him the best chance to win, I expect him to start. So I don't think there will be this like, hey, well, it doesn't do us any good to start Flacco because he's 40. He's not the future. I don't think Kenny Pickett's the future of this offense. I don't. I have zero faith that he is the future of this offense. So if it comes down to the veterans because the rookies aren't ready or whatever it may be, it should be Flacco as long as he proves it the rest of the way. So I did want to talk about that. And they make a good point, though. It's confusing, right? You took Dylan Gabriel before Shedeur. And then you took Shedeur. But you didn't know you were taking Shedeur. And that's the key point to me. Is like you didn't know that you were taking him. It wasn't in the plans to take him, right, in the 5th round. No one had any idea that he would be there. So when you took Gabriel, to me, and I thought it was a reach at the time, but they Kevin loved him. The process, apparently he was great. The pre-draft process. He is, I guess, very good with the playbook and all that stuff. And but that's fine. But once again, from the very little glimpse that I've seen and people that we've talked to, he's not been nearly as good as Sanders. Now, take that for what it's worth. It's not worth a ton at this point. But, like, I don't expect him to be better than Sanders. I thought Sanders was better coming out of college, right? Like, I thought Sanders had a higher ceiling. I think was a better quarterback in college. I just think that it makes sense, despite the fact that he wasn't in your plans. You had the opportunity to take a swing on a guy that you didn't think was going to be there in the 5th round, that has the upside to potentially solve your quarterback conundrum of 40 years, right? He can do that. So I want to give him every chance and every opportunity to do that, and I'm sure they will. But it is confusing because of the order they were drafted, although that means nothing to me at this point, because I think what they thought when they took Dylan Gabriel was, while he meets the process, he meets what we're looking for. He was great in the process. He impressed us. At worst, he can be a tremendous backup for years, right? In a quarterback class, and that they didn't realize they were going to get a swing at one of the guys that they, thought was probably one of the more talented guys in the class. But there he is in the 5th round, and you decide to go take him, which I'm glad they did. And now suddenly, but you look at them through a different lens, or at least I do. I look at Sanders like the potential answer. I don't know if I look at Gabriel through the same lens. Same with Flacco and Pickett. I don't really look at Pickett as a potential answer. Ultimately, full disclosure, I don't care who it is. If they win you games, if they win us games, if they give us the best chance to win games in Cleveland, I don't care who it is, right? But just in my opinion, and based off what we've heard, we've seen, we know about the guys here, Flacco feels like the guy that gives you the best chance to win out of the veterans, and Sanders certainly, to me, has a higher ceiling than Gabriel. So those two make the most sense to want to get on the field this year first, because I think they give them the best chance to win and potentially solve your quarterback problem. But you can't just say, you can't throw away this year with the idea we're going to start Pickett because, starting a 40-year-old doesn't do anything for us. That's we went through that last year. You can't do that to the veterans on this team. You'll lose every single one of them. Charles Robinson wrote an article about Shador's path to starting. He talked a lot about the rookies and them, first it's titled this. There's 3 sections to the article. It's on Yahoo Sports site. If you want to go read it, check it out. It's a good article. First and foremost, Shador Sanders has to master the scheme and the verbiage of the term and verbiage and the terminology. Pardon me. He says that Pat Shurmur's pro-style scheme supposedly made Sanders more pro-ready than some other quarterbacks, although he doesn't think that's proven to be the case. Not only is Sanders going to be mentally swimming with the complexity of an NFL offense, there is a lot of work to do with the basic terminology and verbiage utilized in Stefanski's scheme. Okay, I guess Charles Robinson is very good, but I guess us saying that he for some reason won't be able to pick up the verbiage and the playbook as quickly as Gabriel is a bit of an assumption that I'm not willing to make. Either way, his point is true. They will both have to master that in a fast amount of time, which is why you rarely see rookies start, right? Take advantage of what should be ample reps in preseason games. And me and Pete have talked about this a lot. That preseason games should be Sanders and Gabriel. I don't I know what Kenny Pickett is. I don't need to see him. This should be your showcase to let those guys get the reps under the lights that they want. He writes in here, one source inside the Browns called Gabriel, quote unquote, like a computer when it comes to processing information and absorbing the offense. That alone slots him in front of Sanders. Somebody said that to him inside the Browns, I guess. Really? By all accounts, Sanders has been there early. He said everything right. He's staying late. I don't think there is like a huge intellectual gap here as far as where we're at with the offense. I think that's assuming a lot. So the Browns have to decide if they're committed to winning now or developing a young quarterback. And this is where that's his last section in this, right? Of course, there's a caveat of Flacco and Pickett could look horrible in training camp, which would undercut the experience factor, but the basic point still remains. If the Browns want to develop a young quarterback in either Sanders or Gabriel, the fastest route to get that moving is to get one of them starting snaps sooner rather than later. Doing that would likely require scaling the offense back a bit to make the transition smoother. Do the Browns want to commit to that from week one? If not, they can scale the offense back later in the season and pivot to one of the rookies. These are the kinds of internal discussions that are happening now and will continue to happen in the coming weeks and months. But the stage is absolutely set for a legitimate quarterback battle. Sanders' path to the starting job may be the steepest among the competition, but it's there. So, a very good article, well-researched, well-written as always. Charles Robinson's great. But I push back on the idea that Sanders is for some reason behind or less able to pick up on the playbook as quickly as Gabriel. And I also push back on the idea at the end. Like, once again, you cannot, this isn't a throwaway season. Yes, you need to learn what these quarterbacks are because of your first-round picks next year. But we know how these seasons can go with quarterbacks, right? You're gonna play. They're gonna play games. The rookies are gonna see the field this year. But I think you first and foremost have to do everyone in that building justice in trying to win from the get-go. So if that's Sanders, if that's Flacco, if that's Pickett, if that's Gabriel, that is to be determined. But for me, it feels like Flacco or Sanders would be the ones that I would lean towards wanting to start the season or start early in the season. So, because I want them to compete. I do. I think this defense can be great. I think they can have a resurgence. I think they can be top 5 defense if they play well. They've got a tremendous front. They're going to be hell on other quarterbacks. If you have Emerson have a bounce back year, the secondary should be good. My only questions revolve around safety and Ronnie Hickman. I thought the Browns would go out and get a better safety, although it was made very clear by Jim Schwartz, and it was pretty much made clear by their signings. And I don't mind DeMonte Casey or Jenkins. I think they're both useful players, but bringing those guys in and not a bigger name means they want Hickman to win that job. And whether he grabs that job and runs with it, we'll see. But if he does, there's a potential extension there for him. Along the same lines of interesting positions to watch. Also in the secondary, Greg Newsome and Martin Emerson. Now, Newsome, I have been trying to say they should trade him for some time, but that time has passed, right? You're at a point now for me where I don't know what they think of Cam Mitchell, but by no means does it appear or sound like from people that I talk to that he is ready to take on the kind of role that Newsome can provide. And as much as Newsome's dancing annoys Browns fans and at times his play has annoyed Brown fans, he is a very useful player in that he has inside-outside versatility. And if you know Denzel Ward is going to miss some games, which he does every year, he can kick outside and still provide you a middle to good level of perimeter boundary cornerback play. He's actually better out there, I think, and made a mistake in letting the Browns talk him into becoming a nickel. But that versatility is key at this point, and I don't think Cam Mitchell's ready to take that on. I don't think you can move him now. I think that you have to roll into the season with Ward, Newsome, and Emerson, Mitchell as depth, Miles Harden as depth, whoever else, right? There's some other names out there. But, yeah, that for me then becomes Emerson should earn himself an extension if he can have a bounce back year. And I think he would get that extension mid-season. We saw how they handled Grant Delpit when he got injured his rookie year, had some up and down moments, played well, thought they had to see more before they extended him. And they did in like 9 weeks of that season. 2023, and they offered him the extension, didn't let him get to the open market. They have to feel the same way about Emerson, I think, right? At one point, he was going to break the bank, it felt like. But if he comes out and plays anywhere near what he was in 23, I think you are looking at an extension there, and he can earn that. I think if that happens, Newsome probably walks at the end of the year. I'd be surprised if somehow they both earn extensions, but crazier things have happened. I think it's probably one of them. One or none, I think, is more likely than both, if that makes sense. And I think it's more likely it's Emerson. But Greg Newsome at this point, for me, we're beyond the point of trading him. Like, they need wide receivers, absolutely, and I've highlighted over and over on All Eyes on Cleveland the teams and guys to watch for that could get cut or could, are facing tough extension decisions with their teams that could be trade bait, right, to bring in and try to elevate this wide receiver room, which is very thin. And has a lot of question marks around it, right? But like trading Newsome for a receiver or whatever, I don't think you could even do that at this point. I think you're beyond that point now. Crazier things have happened, but if it hasn't happened by the time to do it was at the draft, right? That's when you would have gotten the best value. That's when you could have taken your return pick, a third round pick, and flipped him for a guy that can do something similar, right? For a guy that can come in and start or back up both of the perimeter guys, right? And then you could move Cam Mitchell and Miles into just that nickel role or whatever. But Newsome provides the versatility to do both, which allows them to do some different things defensively, zone man concept stuff, but also more importantly with injury, there's a less of a drop off when he has to kick outside, which is where he's better anyways. So I think we're past the point of no return on trading Newsome, and he'll make a lucrative $13 million as a starting nickel corner this year on his 5th-year deal. At least that's what it feels like to me. Alex Wright, Isaiah McGuire. Very interesting here, right? Ashley Bastock, Cleveland.com, has alluded that that's a position battle. And coming in, it didn't feel like it. It felt like Isaiah McGuire was the guy. But in talking to some people, it seems like Alex Wright is getting a lot of the reps opposite Myles Garrett when they start stuff. Don't read, I'm telling you guys not to read too much into it. Neither should I. So take it for what it's worth. Not a whole ton at this point, but it brings up an interesting question because Alex Wright is a year further into his career. This is his final year on his deal, his rookie deal. If he is going to earn the starting job over Isaiah McGuire, which would kind of shock me, you're talking about another potential extension guy, right? Depending on his play. Now, my thing with Alex Wright, and the thing that I have contended, is that I think he's better inside. I think when he is at his best, it is, second in pass or third in pass, right? Obvious pass, and you can kick him inside and have him rush the passer. That becomes a mismatch nightmare because he's big enough to do it, and he's agile enough to get upfield and create pressure. Straight off the edge, defensive end, I think Isaiah McGuire is probably the better player at this point. Could they use another edge? Yeah, they could. We'll see what they get from Okoronkwo. Him having that breakout year would be huge. They signed him as an ascending player. He hasn't really lived up to that contract. But once again, they're beyond the point of trading him at this point. I think he's part of this room. And he potentially goes out there, plays well. We've seen flashes from him. He's not a bad player by any stretch. He certainly adds to the defense. He just hasn't ascended to the 10-sack guy that they thought maybe he could be when they signed him. So that opposite edge position with a guy in his final year of his deal in Alex Wright, Isaiah McGuire, who feels like an ascending player, and Okoronkwo, who felt like that, but still has another year on his contract and maybe on this roster. Who emerges there as the best player and their most reliable player? I tend to think that as a straight edge opposite Myles Garrett, it'll be Isaiah McGuire. But Alex Wright finding a role as a versatile inside-outside guy that can play, at the 3, the 4, the 4-eye, and the wide 9 and 7, where, anywhere along the defensive line there, certainly could make him valuable enough for them to want to keep him around. But the thing that Andrew Berry always has to be looking at is not just the next guy that deserves an extension, but the guy after him too at the same position. It's not doubt you're giving both those guys extensions is my point. So just something to keep an eye on for sure as we move into training camp. If that trend continues where Alex Wright looks like he's somehow ahead of Isaiah McGuire on a depth chart down the line, which I don't think they have a depth chart yet, really. They just kind of have ideas about where guys are. That becomes a really interesting point to watch this year on this defense and see who excels. Listen, whether it was intended to do this or not, the two spotting with the quarterbacks has created a really nice atmosphere for this team, right? We've talked about, we know where their deficiencies are at wide receiver, and things like that. Like, there's a lot of wide receivers running around out there that I have to look down and see who that is when you're watching mini camp and stuff, right? But the two spotting has created a sense of urgency, and I feel like they have practiced, taught them how they want to practice with a sense of urgency, because they wanted to get reps to the young guys and stuff. But as you go into training camp now, at what point is 4 guys too many? This will be interesting. At what point is it just too many guys? Maybe they continue to carry forward, but you're going to have to make more stringent decisions about reps, right? Me and Pete have talked about, like, it'll become evident that it's Flacco just because you'll start to see him be more at the forefront and getting more of the reps. And right now, he doesn't need them all, right? They're more useful going to the young guys. But as we get into camp, as we get to the joint practices, as we get further along, once we come back from this hiatus, and if he steadily is starting to get more reps and is becoming like the face of it, I think it'll be pretty evident that he is going to start, right? If that's not the case and he's not getting more, or he's getting more but not ramping up to the extent that it's like a sure thing and it looks like he's the face, the quarterback, whatever, becomes very interesting about who can start. Because of the 3, Pickett, Gabriel, and Sanders, I hope it's Sanders, right? I think that's your best case scenario as far as upside, talent, a guy that could do this for a long time. So now, we know I'm biased. We know I don't like Kenny Pickett, and I didn't like the Gabriel pick, especially where they took him. Seems like a fine young man. Has said all the right things, just the same as Sanders has. So we'll see how it plays out. And but this year is about Kevin reminding everyone that he can coach, right? And he can coach veteran quarterbacks with limitations, and he can coach young quarterbacks with the natural limitations that come with being rookie, to play a level of football that allows you to compete and win, right? Like that, doing that would be huge, right? Just providing that would be huge. I think, and I believe that Stefanski can do that. I believe we've seen it before from him. With lesser quarterbacks, he's gotten the best out of them. So, with all the Watson stuff to the side, and hopefully no agenda to try to play a Kenny Pickett over a Flacco or a whatever, anybody over anybody else for any other reason that they deserve it and they give you the best chance to win, is doing a disservice to this locker room. And it's going to hurt Kevin in the long run, I think. He has to get back to being the guy that is one week at a time. We're worried about this week. What gives us the best chance to win now? And that respect that he has earned over the years from his locker room will quickly deteriorate if it's a situation where it feels like there's influence that they don't want to play Flacco because Kenny Pickett's younger and whatever. It should be about winning games, right? At the same time, you do have to learn about these quarterbacks, but I think this naturally happens. I don't think you have to force it, right? I don't think you have to force it. I think it naturally happens this year, that you will learn what you need to know about these guys. And hopefully one of them does enough that you can take those first-round picks next year and use them on something else. Anyways, I have rambled on long enough. Things I think I know about the Browns post mini camp. Great week of programming all week long here, covering everything from OBR Weekly with Fred and Barry to the film work that Sam and Jacob have been doing, to having Josh on All Eyes on Cleveland last night, Pete on the React, meeting Pete on the React on Tuesdays. All of our shows out there available for you in podcast form, and of course here on YouTube and Twitch. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, do all the things, as Casey would say. It only takes a second. It helps us with the algorithm as we push towards 10,000 subscribers here on the channel. I'll tell you this, we've had quite a push here, and we appreciate you guys watching. I appreciate it as someone highly involved on this side of the operations with the OBR. So thank you so much. Keep it locked. Get over to the OBR.com. Read everything we're putting out there. Subscribe. Become a member. It's the best Browns community in the world, right? It really is. Get in those forums. It is the best. You will love it. The stuff behind the paywall is top-notch inside reporting from Lane Atkins that you can't beat. Like, you'll know things weeks ahead of your friends going on with this team. And this, of all the off seasons, this is going to be one of those off seasons that you're going to want to do that. The link's in the description below. Keep it locked. My name is Brad Ward. This has been another edition of Things I Think I Know About the Browns. Have a wonderful weekend. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. And thank you for watching.